Hello, this is Max Level EDC, and today I want to talk about the Rave, aka the Rebar Wave Hybrid. A while back I went to sell this. There wasn't really any interest, so I figured I might as well just play with it a little bit more and see what other components I could get inside that would work. So this, of course, is an idea that is a way to improve the rebar in a way that makes sense. And it doesn't have any components in it that I would consider suboptimal. I live on like a 3-tool system, and to cover as many bases as I can. This would be what I created to be kind of a middle ground between the Leatherman Crunch and the Victorinox Manager. So this is sort of my middle tool. So let me go through and exactly what I put in this and why in the next video. So it's true that my version of EDC is quite extreme compared to most. I want to carry the most functions possible in the densest form possible. So for me, I don't want to see as much overlap. I want as big of a spectrum of tools as I can pack in as little weight and as little dimension as possible. So for me, it starts with the Victorinox Manager, which is my primary scissor. The simple fact is, except for the Leatherman Surge, every other scissor that Leatherman has made is pretty mediocre in comparison. It's not bad, but nothing compared to anything produced by Victorinox, with the exception of the Spirit, which is their only bad scissor in my opinion. So that is the basis for all of this. So we have the Victorinox Manager, then we have a pair of needle nose pliers. Now this pair of pliers, it's got a whole slew of useful tools that complement this one over here. Okay, so let's run through what's on this Rave. So first thing is, I tried a Phillips head screwdriver from a PST2, and it does work. It doesn't lock, but it is much more centered than the other Phillips, but because it's also so thin, instead of being one thin implement that I can add to it like a bottle opener, which I find completely useless, I can actually put some tools that actually function and give me real benefit. And the other thing that the Leatherman does the better than anybody else is they always include a diamond file. And it's the one thing that probably has kept me from getting the free series, really. Without that, I just would never get the free. Now, I also have a one-handed opening blade, and because I have the wave frame, I can also use this as pocket clip enabled, and that is a great option that I can do. Moving on to the other side. Now, if we have our file covered, now we need our saw. So the Rebar saw does a great job. I actually love their saw, probably more than any of the other saws that they make because of the shape. It doesn't get caught up in wood the same way. Another thing that the Wave doesn't have, it doesn't have an awl. So I got that from a Rebar. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have this bit that has the carbide glass breaker. I already have my Phillips covered on the other side, so I figured why not get the added functionality of the glass breaker with the large flathead. So I do. Now I have both. And I still have this great serrated blade. It's one of my favorite serrated blades, and here's why. It's very thin, which is actually a good thing when you're trying to put as maximum cutting power in, and the serrations are incredibly shallow. You would think that you would want them to be deep. No, you don't. If you have them too deep, they get bunched up in fibrous material, and it doesn't work. So there's that component. Now there is going to be some redundancy with that and the Crunch, and that's mostly because this is easier to access. This is going to be buried within a pouch or even a backpack. So on this one, I have my serrated blade, which is a backup utility knife, and it's short. I still have the Phillips, which is very similar, and I have the two smaller fine flatheads. Now, it also has a bigger flathead that's available in the Wave, and the file is sort of irrelevant because it's terrible. It's a terrible file. The Leatherman Crunch file is god-awful. It doesn't really work on anything except maybe soft plastic and maybe some soft wood. Yeah, that's about all. But when it comes to usefulness, I don't think anything compares to the locking plier head of the Crunch. And I just love it. So with these three together, You're looking at a pretty close, not perfect, but pretty close to the perfect system. To reiterate, extreme, yeah, it's extreme, but in this setup, I'm not carrying a dedicated folding knife. This is working as my folding knife, and it's going in my pocket. The combination of wave frame and rebar frame brings this down to 8 ounces instead of 8.6, so it's a little bit lighter. It's also quite a bit more compact than something like the Charge. It's a little bit narrower, and once I have rounded these edges, it will be much more ergonomic. I've also filed down the top part of the blade so that when I have the serrated blade out and I'm cutting with it, I also have a better, more comfortable grip. That's sort of the purpose. That's one of the big advantages of this hybrid. Otherwise, it doesn't have that much over a Charge. But the ergonomics is wonderful, and you get access to a couple of extra implements that you wouldn't otherwise have. So I hope you enjoy this and have a good one.